guys, and welcome back to the Emily Knits podcast channel. This is, I guess, episode 1.5 of the podcast is the best way to call it. It's not a podcast episode. I mentioned in my last video, my first video, if you watched it, that I want to, as part of my 2024 goals, I want to sort out my yarn stash and I want to knit from stash more this year. As you can see, it's a bit of a mess. So that's what we're going to do today. We've got is a brief rundown of what I'm going to go through and how I'm going to do it. At the top, this needs sorting. I think it's pretty much sorted, but it probably needs going through anyway. That should be fingering weight, scraps and minis. These three cubbies you can see are a mess. You can see the yarn dangling down. They need sorting. These two at the bottom I'm not going to touch. That's my printer, that's my sewing machine, and they are project bags, so I'm not going to go through those. But I also do have two boxes at the bottom. You can see as well there's some stuff on the floor that needs going through. One of those boxes is full of sewing stuff, so I'm not going to go through that, but the other one needs sorting, and I'm pretty certain there's going to be a massive yarn tangle in there. So that's going to be fun. What I'm going to do, I don't know if you can tell from the frame of the shop, this is quite a small room. You're in the doorway. That's my yarn stash, obviously. This is my work from home space. This is my computer desk and chair and everything, and this is a dog bed, and that is essentially the space in this room. So there isn't really a lot of space for me to show you things, so I'm going to get everything out. I'm going to use probably my bed or something like that to lay it flat and show you what we've got. I'm not going to go through everything because I think I'd be here a while, but what I do want to do is go particularly through things that I've got plans for. There are some things that I have patterns in mind for that I've bought for specific patterns. There are, however, a few things that I don't have a pattern for, don't have a plan for, or I'm not 100% sure on the pattern that I've chosen, or I have a pattern, but like for one example, I want to do stripes, but I don't know which way around to do the stripes, so I'd really like your opinions on those things. I want to crowdsource some opinions on them. So any patterns that you can suggest for any of those things when I put them up, and I'll put what I'm asking for suggestions for as well, I'll make it clear. Or any scrap busting patterns, anything that you would suggest to do or not to do with the yarns that I've got left, I am more than open for those suggestions, so please feel free to leave them below in the comments. And yeah, without further ado, because it's going to take a while, let's get into it. I should say as well, before I properly get into it, what I'm not going to include in this is anything that's already a WIP or assigned to a project. So for example, my Cascade 220 that I talked about the other day, this is going to go to be the Journey Through Yarn test knit. So none of this I'm going to put in the other things that's already assigned to an active WIP or what's going to be an active WIP onwards. Back. First and foremost, a couple of apologies. So it's actually a week since I filmed the last bit, just over a week since I filmed the last bit of this video, but you won't be noticing that thanks to the joys of editing, but it has been just over a week. And you'll notice I'm not doing what I said I was going to do, which was lay it all flat and talk to you about everything. A couple of things happened. So I did film that, and I went back to edit it yesterday, and I just wasn't happy with how it looked, so I've got rid of all that footage. What then happened, unfortunately, it was just after I filmed the first shot, I got really poorly. I was starting to feel a little bit under the weather in that video that thankfully you can't see. But about the day after I filmed, I got really quite unwell. My other half had been unwell, and he thankfully, you know, sharing's caring, obviously, and he passed that on to me. And we both ended up with what I think was the flu. We tested for COVID, we were negative, thankfully, but we've been wiped out for the best part of 2 weeks. Best part of 2 weeks since we got poorly, about a week since I felt well enough. And that's the other apology, is that my voice, I'm sure, sounds a bit terrible compared to what it sounded like earlier in the video. So thank you for your patience with me sounding a bit rough. I've sounded like this since a week tomorrow. I sounded much worse than this at points. This is the best it sounded in about a week. So I wanted to film, and I wanted to film the rest of this. So apologies for my voice sounding a little bit rough. I'm hoping by the time I film again it won't. And thank you for your patience with me. What I've done is, as you can see, I've put things back in and I've reorganised. It won't look very organised, and I've not really done it in a way that I haven't organised by weight or by colour or anything. What I thought I'd do is talk you through what I've done and what I've got, and then here highlight the stuff that I want your opinions on, stuff that I've got plans for, or stuff that I particularly want opinions on. What I've done when I'm organising it, I started organising by weight and things like that. And what I found quite quickly is I've got lots of certain weights and not lots of the other ones. So I thought, rather than doing that, what I've spread it out by is, I suppose it's a bit by colour, but not really. What I thought I would do is keep out the things that I'm inspired by. So these I'm going to talk about. I've got a plan for these, but I keep forgetting about that plan because it's buried in amongst everything else. So these are now something where I can see them, as is these cones at the top, so I can see them and I can hopefully be a bit more inspired by them. But there are a couple of things in here that I don't know what to do with, and I want your thoughts on. So without any more chatter, let's get into it. Grab a drink. I have a cup of tea just over to the side, a green tea, to keep me a little bit hydrated so I don't cough at you, and apologies in advance if there's quite a lot of cuts. So what I've done is I've got my cones along the top, and there are a couple of these I want some advice on, and we'll talk through those first. This box, to start with, we're not going to go through. So this box is things that are already assigned to patterns or are assigned to works in progress currently, and this box is full of different weight scraps. This box here, trying to figure out where my hand is all fingering weight scraps and minis. I'm going to show that briefly because I think what I'd quite like to do with that is make a sweet shop blanket, but I'm not sure what contrast colour to use with it, so I'll get your thoughts on that. And this is all Aran weight, DK weight, anything like that, so we won't go through those. But the first things I wanted to go through are these cones on the top. So I've got this one to start with, which I'll bring up and show. This is a woolly knit cone in the shade Natural Twist, I think, light Natural Twist. This is their 4-ply British wool, and I have a plan to make the Vivian sweater by Herb Garden Knitwear out of this one. I have swatched for this, and the swatch is lovely, so I really would like to knit that this year, so that's why that stays front and centre up the top. I also have these two, which are from Holst. These are a relatively recent purchase. This is my first time trying Holst. There's some magic going on here. I've heard people talk before about the yardage in Holst being really, really good. But if I just for context, these are both supposed to be 500 gram cones. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can. One is considerably bigger. This is the shade Cinnamon. This is considerably bigger than this, which is the shade Heather, Vintage Heather. But both of them are considerably larger than the woolly knit one. Now I did a bit of a weigh. This is 539 grams, 529 grams, which means it's probably about bang on 500 with that cone in the middle. This one's close to 600. This is like 589, something like that. So this is close to 600, and this is 650 grams. So I've paid for 500 grams, and I've got much more than that. So I've got massive amounts of yardage on these. I want to make a Farnham sweater out of this by the Knit Pearl Girl, and I want your advice actually. I want to make a Farnham sweater out of it. I'm dead set on that. But do I have this as my main colour with this as stripes, or the Cinnamon as my main colour with the navy as stripes? I think I'm leaning towards the navy as the main colour, but let me know your thoughts. The other thing that has entered my mind, and it's one of those things where it's entered my mind and now I can't get rid of it, is do I hold like a sparkly thread with this? I can picture in my mind navy main colour with small golden brown stripes, but sparkly golden brown stripes. Is that stupid? Will that look terrible, or would that actually look kind of good? Let me know what you think. I'm interested on that. Also, any other patterns are welcome, because like I say, I'm going to have to hold it double for the Farnham sweater, but there's still nearly 600 grams of fingering weight here and over 600 grams here. So I've got loads. I've got loads, more than enough for a sweater. So any other patterns that you recommend, I'm up for. All of these individual cones here were a woolly knit mystery bag over Christmas. These are probably going to go in some scrappy projects and things like that. It was like I think you got a kilo for like £15, something like that. It's all fingering weight, and that's what these cones back here are as well. So I'm not going to go through those. Another thing I'm not sure what to do with is this. So I have several balls, I'll put how many on screen, of this King Cole recycled forest Aran. This is in the shade Gale Forest. It's a mix. It's 35% wool, 20% acrylic, 20% polyamide. No, I was going to say, aren't acrylic and polyamide the same things? But that's nylon and polyamide. 35% wool, 20% acrylic, 20% polyamide, 25% viscose. It's supposed to be an Aran. It's a very thin Aran. It is 300 meters per 100 grams. 25 rows and 18 stitches by 10 centimeters. I got this a few years back to make a single malt sweater for my other half with. I don't know if you can see, it's got all sorts of tweedy flecks in it. And I've pulled that out because I didn't really check his size first. It was very early on. I didn't really check his size. I didn't check my gauge. So I'm not entirely convinced it was going to fit, and it was also quite holey because that is an Aran weight pattern and this is a very thin Aran weight. 300 meters per 100 grams is not an Aran weight gauge. So I think I've got about 1500 meters of this. So again, any suggestions, any thoughts? I'm not really sure what to do with that. These I have a pattern in mind for. These are the Stylecraft Highland Heathers. This again is an acrylic yarn. It's a DK weight acrylic. This is the shade Gorse and the shade Moss, I think. Yeah. And I got these again very early on, intending to make something for Christian out of them, my other half. And I've settled on the Metenis pullover by Zanetta Knits, which I just want to get on with. I just want to make. He loves the pattern. I think they'll look really good in this. This is 100% premium acrylic, 297 yards, 272 meters per 100 grams. So that's actually, there's less meters per 100 grams in an actual DK weight than there is in this, which is an Aran weight. So yeah, it's not an Aran weight. It's definitely not an Aran weight. I then have this, which is another Stylecraft. I promise it's not all acrylic and things, but I will get those out of the way first. This is Stylecraft Grace. This is a really interesting mix. So this is a 85% acrylic, 10% mohair, 5% wool blend. This is the shade Oyster. And again, I've got about 1200 meters of this. I don't know if you can see, it's got a real halo to it. It's really, really nice, and it's very cost effective. I had planned to make the Asteria sweater, sorry. I'm going to have to put the name of the designer on screen because I've completely forgotten. And I still like that, and I would still like to make that, but I'm not sure if I want to make it out of this. So if you've got any other suggestions, please feel free to let me know. Again, DK weight, 295 meters. Again, it says it's Aran weight, but again, I've used it in a DK weight pattern, and it's much thinner. 295 meters per 100 grams. And I've got 5 balls of that. Then I have this, oops. This is a relatively new addition. I have over 2,000 meters of this big value King Cole big value DK, which again is 100% acrylic. It's a really nice acrylic. It feels more like wool. This was a purchase from Facebook Messenger, Facebook Marketplace. I paid like £7 for this for 14 balls, which was a really, really good purchase. I think I want to make something for my dad out of this. My dad He's very knit worthy. He's had some hats, he's had some socks. He loves his socks. He's actually requested another pair from me for my birthday, for his birthday, sorry. But I'd like to make him a sweater. The only thing is, well, the reason I've wanted to make it with acrylic is he can be quite hard on his clothes, and I'm not bothered about that. But what I am bothered about is if he thinks it's delicate or he thinks that it's not machine washable, he won't want to wear it because he'll be so worried about damaging something I've put a lot of work into. So this would be perfect for that. So I have 2,000 meters of, this is the shade Light Taupe, I think. Taupe, just taupe. DK weight acrylic. And again, any suggestions? I thought maybe a zipper sweater of some sort. I don't want to make the petite knit one. So something, maybe a zipper sweater, a textured, something like that. Again, suggestions are very, very welcome. I've then got, I've got 4 balls left over from my, I've got some yarn left over that I don't know what to do with. So I've got 4 balls of Drops Charisma left over from my Go Fret Raglan by Celine Phaeton. This is in the shade, I think it's mustard, it just says 52 on the back. This is 100% wool. And I think I've got 3 or 4 balls of this Drops Lima, which is an alpaca wool blend. Or I've just got just shy of 4 balls because I've used a bit of one, but it's like 10 grams of one, I think. This is in the shade 9025. I think this was shade Chalk or Limestone, one or the other, I'll put it below. This is a wool alpaca blend. 65% wool, 35% alpaca. They're both DK weight. I either could do something with them together or I could do something with them separate, but I've got enough. It's not just a scrap. I've got 4, so I've got 200 grams of this, 200 grams of this. So I don't know what to do with that 400 grams of DK weight yarn. Again, suggestions very welcome, together or separate, either. I'm open on that. And I have quite a lot of, of this. I'm just going to pull out one little ball to show you. This is no longer made, which is really frustrating. This was a woolly knit, got my hair in it. This was a woolly knit 100% Marino Hank. I got 2 of them in their sale years back, and I think it was on sale because it was being discontinued. It's in this dark grey shade. I've used it a couple of times for projects, and I started making a jumper out of it. Now the problem is I think I've got 2 different dye lots. So I either need a pattern that doesn't matter, that isn't gonna show it so much. But what happened before was I knit through one hank, I caked up the second hank and started knitting with that, and there was a very distinct line where the shade of grey changed. So either I need to mal them together or I need to stripe them so it doesn't become so obvious, or it needs to be something where that doesn't matter. I'll put a rough yardage for this down below. I've got loads of this and I don't really know what to do with it. It's gorgeous, but say I'm a bit wary of using it with a sweater because you'll see that the colour change. So again, thoughts welcome. And I have, I think it's 10 balls of this as well. This was one of my ex-colleagues. We still work at the same company, but we've changed jobs. And she, when I started working with her, she was into crochet and she's very recently got into knitting. She lives in Bristol and seems to have really, really good luck at the charity shops near her. And she went in and they had 2 bags of this. They had 2 bags of 10 balls of this Rowan Tapestry, and she got a pack for herself and she got me a pack and posted me a pack on once I paid her for it. So I have 10 balls of this, which is 50 grams is 120 meters, and it's a 70% wool and 30%, I think it's vegan silk, soybean protein fiber. And it is a colour changing yarn. You can see it's got different colours in it there. So again, I've got 10 balls, so I've got 500 grams. So I've got 1,200 meters of this. I have got a jumper from Primark that I would kind of like to try and recreate. I'll put a picture of it up here. And I did wonder if I could try and recreate it with this because it's colour changing. So maybe that, but again, open to suggestions. Don't know what to do with this. I also have 3 balls of this. This is about the only pinky purple that I have in my stash. This is a ball of Zba Ball by Cheel. Not the Zba Ball, this is the sport weight crazy wool, Zba Wool. It is 100%, I think it's 100% merino or 100% wool. Yeah, 100% medium merino, sorry, 100% virgin merino. And again, it's colour changing. It's got all these pinks and purples and reddy colours in it. I thought about making the Jingwu scarf from one of the liner magazines I've got, and maybe sort of striping this, finishing one ball, doing a block of a plain colour, finishing another ball, doing a block of a plain colour. I've got 750 metres of this. I've got 3 balls, 100 grams is 250 metres. So yeah, again, open for suggestions. I've then got some more interesting bits down here. I've got quite a lot of both of these mohairs. These were both purchased on Etsy from somebody doing a destash, and I've got no idea what they are. They're not massively silky. They're quite, I don't know what to say, almost dry. That doesn't really make sense. I've used some of this in my Whitmore cardigan, again, cardigan sweater, again, I'll put a picture up, and I paired this with some woolly knit, but I've still got loads of this left, which is a really nice burgundy shade, and then I've got absolutely loads of this orangey shade, and I think this I'm going to turn into a Mohair Gallant by Cadry. I might do the same for this, but I've got less of this, so I need to just do a check of roughly how much I think I've got left, but I've got loads. They were like £15 for, God, so many metres, so many metres. I then have 3 gorgeous skeins from Third Vault Yarns. So I did some sample knitting for Lola at Third Vault Yarns, and they offered either payment or payment in the form of skeins, and I chose payment in the form of skeins. So I have one of their Kaguya 4-ply in the shade Marionette. This is 100% bamboo finger and weight yarn in absolutely gorgeous colours. I then have 2 of their companion 4-ply bases. This Marionette, I should say, is incredibly drapey. Their companion 4-ply is fairly drapey as well. But I have 1 skein of the shade Tea in the Wild. I think this is a, yeah, 100% superwash Falcons Merino. And then Mount Doom. And I thought I would make, from at least one of these, maybe 2, make a Nurture Bralette by Celine Phaeton. And then I don't know what to do with the rest. So again, I don't really want to make socks. I've got some socks that I need to make, but socks are not my favourite thing in the world. So maybe not socks, but other suggestions, maybe shawls. I've really found a use for shawls recently because I've gone back into an office, and when people change the air conditioning, it's quite nice to just have something over my shoulders. So shawl suggestions, things like that I could make with these would be welcome. I also have this, which is, this was purchased while we were away over Christmas. This is just one sock set from Dystopic fibre yarn. This is in the shade Winter Mint, I think. Yeah, and it's this gorgeous greeny minty brown skein with this really, that's quite accurate, really bright, almost highlighter green shade for the contrast of mini. This is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, hand dyed in Glasgow. This will probably be socks. I have 2 skeins of this. This is caked up. That isn't doing it justice at all. This is much more green than it's looking on camera. There's a lot of brown in there. There is browns in it. This was Nit Pro's yarn, Nit Pro Symphony, I'm pretty certain was the name. I didn't know they did yarn, but apparently they do. And I've got 2 skeins of this, and I was intending to make a cottagecore crop out of this. I think it will look gorgeous. And again, it's a lot more green than it's coming off in the camera. So that will look really nice with my skin tone. Yeah, they're the main things that I wanted to go through that I'm looking for suggestions with. So Farnham sweater, something to do with this, something to do with this as well. Drops Charisma in there as well. Any suggestions for patterns with mohair? And then what I'm going to briefly do is show you these minis in here, just to get your thoughts on a contrast colour. So I've got, if I hold it up, yeah, that's quite good, isn't it? These are all a bit messy. That's some, let's not talk about my first ever handspun. It's not very good. I've got a lot of minis in here that I want to use, and I'd intended to use as a sweet shop blanket. They're a mix of Wild Pearl yarns. I'll put a link to her Etsy shop because they're beautiful, and a couple from Ruffles Crochet Creations, which again I'll put a link to below. But a lot of them have got a lot of white in, and my aim was going to be to use like a cream or white main colour, but a lot of them just wouldn't contrast very much. I've got some leftover sock bits in here as well. So yeah, I don't really know what to do as a contrast colour for that. I think a sweet shop blanket would be lovely. Like these, they're not even going to show on camera. They're sparkly, and they've got bits of like blue and purple and yellow in, but that's not going to contrast against a white or a cream. So I don't know what to do. Do I do like a neutral, a brown or a brown or a cream contrast? I don't know, honestly. I don't know what to do. So that, yeah, any suggestions for that is welcome. Some would be fine. Some would be absolutely fine. Others just wouldn't. And I'm not really sure what the best way to go there is. I also have a couple of things in the bottom there that I wanted to talk about. I've got, I think about 950 metres and 850 metres respectively. Oh, this one's got a ripped ball band, great. I think I've got about 950 metres of the Drops Alaska in the shade Sage Green, and about 850 metres of the Drops Alaska in the shade Dark Green. They were put into another project together. I wasn't happy with it, so I ripped it out. But they do, I think they go nicely together. Drops Alaska, I think, is a chunky weight. It's 50 grams is 70 metres, 100% wool. So suggestions for chunky colour work, anything like that, with about those yardages again, would be very recommended, very welcomed. This yarn from Aldi. I got it, put the pad down. I got it on a whim several years ago, and these are the colours. It is a DK weight acrylic, 50 grams, 125 metres, and I have, in each pack, there's 2 of each colour. So I've got 3 packs. So I've got 6 of this, 6 of this, 6 of this, 6 of this. And I thought about maybe making a blanket with this. Knitted or crocheted, either works. And any suggestions for acrylic blankets that would work with that are really, really welcome as well. I was just going to show a couple of bits I found as well. So I mentioned briefly that I started off crocheting, and I found a couple of bits that I keep meaning to do things with. So this was the beginnings of a Sophie's Universe years back. I'm not going to finish it any more than this. I've got rid of the yarns and everything. It was a yarn kit, yarn pack, and I can't remember the brand. I think it was Sheepges, something like that. But the size that this would make a really nice cushion cover, and I keep meaning to turn it into either like a wall hanging or a cushion cover or something like that. And I've kept this to do that with, because I think it is gorgeous, and the work that went into it is worth keeping. The other thing that I should probably get rid of, but I haven't been able to convince myself to yet, is this, which is the beginnings of a crochet ripple blanket. This is from ages ago. So once I'd finished crocheting and moved on to knitting, I had loads of little odds and ends left of sort of chunky weight and Aran weight, and I decided just to turn it into a stripy ripple blanket. And I got this far and I got distracted. Got some acrylic scraps and things in these boxes that would work in this, and I think I maybe just need to keep this and just eventually put some more, what's that? Sort of a lumpy stitch, that's a bit strange. Put some more rows in it as and when, and the dogs will use this, we will use this, so I feel like I should probably keep going on that. And that is the last thing that I wanted to show. So thank you very much for watching, if you've watched to the end, and thank you for your patience with me. So I wanted to give a very quick thank you to those of you who watched my first video and left some really, really lovely comments and subscribed. It's had more positive response than I ever thought it would ever get, and I'm genuinely so grateful. I'm really glad to be here back and doing this again with you. So yeah, I look forward to your thoughts on everything that I've asked for suggestions with. I'll put some figures on screen somewhere now about roughly how much I've got. Most of this is now added to Ravelry. I haven't added the minis and things like that, but most of it is now on there, so I should be able to get some fairly decent yardage figures for you. But I really, really look forward to hearing your suggestions, your thoughts, and let me know, is your stash anywhere near like this? Is it more made up of wool? Is it less made up of wool? Are there different colours that you use? You can see I tend to gravitate towards blues and greens and cooler tones, sort of browns and things, which if you'd have asked me, I'd have told you red was my favourite colour and purple was second, but there's not really any of either of those in there. So yeah, it was an interesting, very interesting exercise. I'd be really interested to see how your stash compares. So for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to your suggestions and thoughts, and I hope to see you in about a week, maybe 2 weeks, with a podcast episode, a traditional format podcast episode, where we will go through the progress I've made, things I've finished, what I'm working on, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks guys, bye.